All right, welcome back here to the Gill Connections podcast. So humbled to be your host, Mike Cunningham, National Business Development Manager here at Gill, and the podcast guy. I get to host podcast. And when I was growing up, obviously track was a big deal to me. Football, I couldn't stand baseball. I played 1 year, fifth grade, and just I think I had a zero batting average. And it just, I'm just not a fan. So if you're a fan, I'm so sorry, but I'm just not a fan. But here I find myself a couple weeks ago. We had a coach on here up in Hall, Connecticut, who was a baseball first guy, loved baseball. That was his love. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about? And today we're going to talk about, like, I do know this movie called Field of Dreams about baseball. And we're going to talk a lot about this Field of Dreams for throwing. So bear with me as this baseball stuff is right over my head. Help me welcome from Throw Town Ramona, the SEAL Throwing Club, the wise, the wonderful Mr. Caleb Seal. Caleb, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Do you have a baseball background? I saw you kind of shaking your
Ah,
head.
no
Okay, good,
baseball
good,
background.
good.
I enjoy watching it in October, of course, but uh, no baseball playing in my background.
I can't even like I'm not a basketball fan, but I like March Madness. We're recording this right now in March Madness. Like I'll watch a game or two. My beloved Trojans made the tourney this year, so that was cool. And my wife's an Illinois grad, so Illinois made the tourney. They just got booted out yesterday, but I'll watch that. I don't know if I'll actually watch the NBA finals or not, but I'd be more apt. Even the World Series, I'm not watching, bro. I just can't. There's nothing about it.
I don't mind watching the World Series. I like sports in general.
Mhm.
Once things start getting heated up and intense, it usually draws my attention. So
Yeah,
whatever it is.
there is something about the win or go home.
Oh
In
yeah.
the regular season, it's like, well, you just you play 164 games. I'll just see you tomorrow, type of
Hmm.
thing. But when I could get that. I get that. Well, Caleb, my man, thanks for being here. First of all, really appreciate your time. It's one of the most valuable things you can give me, and I know you're busy, so I'm just really excited to learn more about you and more about your journey, and then to talk about this. I alluded to this Field of Dreams, but this thing that you built and it's growing, and I don't think it's done growing. I don't think you got like a fully formed thing. I think it's still evolving, which is really exciting out there.
No, it really is still evolving. We're just in our third season, competitive season here at Ramona.
Is that
And
right?
I'm surprised, I'm just kind of reviewing some of the entries, the number of entries from a couple years past to where we are now, and
Mhm.
things have picked up here at Ramona. It's still March, so it's still
Right.
pretty early. Still got, we've got chilly temperatures. The temperatures are a little cooler in March, but the wind still blows. But once things start picking up closer to April, things really pick up at Ramona. So
Well,
we're
we're going to
ready.
get more into it here near the end when we get to that stage of your career. I do want to, as we kind of tease it a little bit here. So tell us, where is Ramona? Some people have maybe seen this on social media. Other people hear Ramona and have no idea. We're typically talking about Discus, and so maybe people are thinking about there was a huge area in California people used to go to a lot, and Hawaii used to go, but now Ramona is the place. Tell us a little bit about where Ramona is, and maybe let's go ahead and get into this. Why Ramona as well?
Why Ramona? Well, I needed out of the city limits. One, land costs were just extremely high in city, so that was definitely an out. And then so I just kind of drew kind of a radius around Tulsa within 30 minutes outside of the city limits. And I was focused on some areas to the east of Tulsa for a little bit, but um, you know, I worked with a realtor. You set up some filters and things, automatically just kind of pop up on your phone. And, this place at Ramona popped up, and, I was in my hometown, Childress, Texas at the time, and doing some farm work. And that immediately drew my attention. I kind of stopped what I was doing and kind of really looked at it in detail, and um, couldn't wait to get back to Tulsa and to go check it out. So Monday morning, I was already out at the um, property to check it out, and it really um, drew my attention at that point. And so I made a phone call to a good friend of mine, Don Milliken, who gave me a green light to do this from day one. And I just briefly mentioned him. I think you need to come out here and take a look at this property. I think I found the place that I want to build the facility on. So
Wow.
um, he's been supportive and behind me since day one. In fact, he motivated and really pushed me to do this. Um, Don has he kept reminding me, like, have you been looking at for land? I really think you need to venture out and do this. This is what you do, and this is what
Wow.
you're great at it. So he kept encouraging me and pushing me to go find a place and let's get this started. Um, you know, for I guess ever since 2015, I hosted competitions at local high schools in the
Oh,
area.
okay.
So this is how all this got started. So
Well, let's not get into that just yet, though,
okay,
because I want to build
okay,
into that. So,
yeah.
so where Ramona is, so Tulsa, and then you said you were looking
Mhm.
east, but not east. Where are you? North, south, west?
Yeah, we're actually north of Tulsa,
Okay.
25 minutes north.
Okay. All right. So we would, if for the people that are going, we typically fly into Tulsa and then drive a
Yeah,
shorter
in fact,
distance.
if you fly into Tulsa International Airport, we're literally 20 minutes north on Highway 75.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay.
So
Perfect.
we're actually closer to the airport than we are anything. So
Perfect.
it makes it so easy.
Cool.
Ramona's so simple to get to.
Good. Love that. It must be because again, and we're going to learn
Yeah.
more about it. The people that
Oh
are
yeah.
showing up is, it's
Yep.
become a mecca. There's no other way around it. If you're not going to Ramona and you're a thrower, I'm not sure you're
Mhm.
throwing. So, all right. Well, we'll
You're
learn. Good.
yeah. You're not basically you're not paying attention
Right. Yeah.
if you're
Exactly.
not at Ramona.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, we'll learn more because it's truly exciting. I love unique things around track and field, and you
Sure.
have certainly built that. And I totally forgot this is only year three. For some reason, I had like four, five, six in my head. Like, oh, this has just been going on for a while now. And yeah, it's still it is a little baby. It is still an infant that's growing into its full body.
Right. We existed for, probably 5 years prior to Ramona with the Oklahoma Throw Series competitions, but
Yes, that's right.
those were held at high school
Right.
venues, and that's kind
That-
of a no-go
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
at
Makes
this
sense.
level.
Well, let's take a step back and let's learn more. We're talking about throws and this Mecca and Ramona, Throws Town Ramona. Where in the world does, what are you doing in throws? Why don't we take us a step back? Where does track and field and I guess maybe throws start for you?
Kind of how I got into track and field in general.
Yeah.
Goes all the way back to going to, school, junior high and high school in Childress, Texas. It's in the panhandle between Wichita Falls and Amarillo.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's like a 3A school, farm and ranch community. Um, so it's kind of like it's who that could possibly be a mentor in a small community like that. And my mother really kind of helped push me and motivate me to go, try out shot and discus. I was tall and had long levers basically. So um, at the time, we had a high school senior that practiced every day. She was very determined and dedicated, and it was Deanne Bragg at the time, and her dad basically coached her and her brother Darren, put them through college at ACU,
Oh, wow.
and so there was a lot of knowledge there, and I kind of knew that kind of drew my attention. So I got the nerve up to go to his house, John Bragg, and knock on his door and ask him if he'd help coach me and teach me the shot and discus.
Huh.
And obviously, he did. He just told me to be there at 5 o'clock every day after school, and
Hmm.
that's when they started practice. And basically, I was a sponge from that then on. So,
Mm. Did you play any other sports or was this?
oh yeah, I played football. I was
Mhm.
a all-state football player there at Childress,
Wow.
defensive side, and yeah, I really enjoyed playing football for that Childress, and then I obviously threw the shot and discus in the springtime.
Caleb, that you strike me, we've known each other for years. You're not a kind of air quotes here, typical big guy. You're tall, but you're not a, like I'm good friends with John Godina. I look at John, I'm like, oh yeah, you're born to throw. Of course, you're a thrower. Did you venture into any other events as well? Did you try long jumping or
Oh
anything
no,
like that? No,
no,
not at
no.
all.
As they say, dynamite comes in small packages. I was just powerful and
Yeah,
strong and aggressive naturally, and shot discus was just a natural thing that I could pick up and
yeah.
really well.
What drew you to those events? So they are unique. Every event is unique, right? But those two events that you're talking about, and even between those two events, there are uniquenesses between those two. What drew you? Like, do you remember like that first time you showed up to Coach Bragg's house at 5 and he put a shot in your hand and like was it an immediate like, oh, like,
Well,
I love this, or was there a learning curve for you?
well, I can tell you the man was a great motivator, still is today. Um, a great storyteller, and also he had his ways of motivating just about any athlete that he worked with, and
Hmm.
he took me everywhere. He took me down to ACU and watched the college competitions, and
Hmm.
we saw three guys throw over 200 feet on the same day from SMU, with Dave's crew.
Yeah.
So he had his ways of motivating me and teaching me who's who, and how you threw the shot and disc. We'd go down to the Texas state track meets every single year, and that was pretty fascinating to me to see and to learn who's to basically to learn who's who in the high school level as well.
Right.
I saw some major records broken in those weekends
Yeah.
that still stick with me today. And so I'm friends with most of those past throwers still today.
Wow.
And they're bringing their kids to Ramona.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's mind blowing. Roger Raisler was one of the best throwers in the country. Played football for University of Texas, and he brings his son Bryce up, and I just remember he shut down the Texas 5A state meet inside the Texas stadium, no, inside the football stadium.
Mhm.
Everybody stopped to watch him throw the shot put in the corner, throw 72 feet, and it just erupted like a football game.
That's
It's
amazing.
quite amazing. So that,
Holy.
if that can't motivate you, you're probably in the wrong sport.
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah, that's exactly right. If that doesn't, yeah, pick something else. Exactly. Did
so
it's always amazing to me, like with sprinting or distance running or even like long jumping, like it's a pretty natural movement, right? Like if we take one of our kids onto the long jump and say, okay, run. And when you get here, jump, maybe not jump far because they need coaching, but they'll know and feel it pretty good. A discus and even a shot put is a little different. There's no just like, hey, here's a discus, go throw it. It'll go 10 feet because you don't know what the heck you're doing. Was it natural for you, like the first time you picked up that discus, or was it a quick learning curve, or was it like frustration? That discus can be tricky.
well, yeah, I mean, there's frustrations for sure in the sport, or in the events, just learning it. And I understand, and I can kind of resonate with some of the high school kids that I work with, and I already know what they're thinking before they're actually thinking it.
Hmm.
I can see their frustrations, and I try to help them through those learning curves. But yeah, it was a quick learning curve for me, but I had my daily frustrations that I worked through to achieve, the things, the milestones that I was able to do, and with the discus at least. I was always drawn to the discus more than the shot put, and didn't even know what hammer throwing was in high
Right.
school. Didn't care
Yeah.
about that. But you know, in the panhandle, from Lubbock to Amarillo to Wichita Falls, you have high winds, and um, anyways, I learned how to throw the discus perfectly on almost every attempt,
Mhm.
and watch the discus fly for. I mean, it would catch the wind and it would go forever. So I knew how to play the wind, and
Hmm.
um, so that's kind of where my knowledge came to facility design.
That's interesting. Oh yeah, true. That's interesting because that feels like a secondary to even tertiary learning process for an athlete. First of all, they got to learn just how to hold it, okay, how to release it. Those are kind of the basics. Wind
Yeah.
comes like, second or third step down when you get a little bit more advanced. Like, oh, okay, I see how the wind affects it, so I've got to throw it differently. You, because of where
Hmm.
you grew up, you had to like almost right off the bat, like, okay, I see quarter winds and I see headwinds and tail. Like, okay, those are a
Oh,
little bit different. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we experienced 20 to 30-mile-an-hour winds almost every day in April. You don't want to go out and throw in a headwind or a backwind. That makes a crummy practice. Probably would shut you down mentally, and
Yeah.
you know nobody wants to throw in
That's funny.
conditions like that.
That's
So
funny. Did Coach Brad coach you all 4 years in high school?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, even junior high school,
Mm.
I could throw the 1 kilogram discus in junior high, extremely far for
Wow.
14-year-old, 13-year-old,
Yeah.
over 160 feet.
Mm.
Um, so, and then that carried over. You're just converting over from a 1K to a 1.6 and then learning how to throw the 1.6 as far as you did the 1K in junior high
Mhm.
school. And so, it has its challenges, but, progressing in the weight room and just being patient and letting yourself develop
Mhm.
over, a year or two, you'll get back to where that 1K was going.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
think about that. I always think about the 1.6 to 2K transition, but yeah, our middle
well,
schoolers are
yeah.
typically throwing 1K. Yeah, I didn't think about that. And
Hmm.
I wonder percentage wise, like from the 1 to the 1.6 versus the 1.6 to the 2, it's a big jump. 1.6 is a much bigger
Oh,
discus than a
yeah.
1, just like the
Right.
2K is much bigger than the 1.6. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely impacts the distance that you're throwing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a heavier implement, and you have to learn how to continue to work and to progress to catch back up. Even with the 2K from the 1.6 was a transition
Yeah, for sure.
for about a year.
So, okay, well, so that I didn't want to ever assume, but okay, so you threw in
Yeah.
college as well. So talk to us about, it's senior year, you're doing well, all state in football. That's amazing in any
Hmm.
state, but Texas feels like that's a little bit higher of a calling,
Oh, yeah.
no matter what classification you're in. What were you thinking about for college? And what I mean by that is, so where did you look at and things like that? Did you play football in college as well? And what were you thinking about professionally? Meaning, you went to go study English because you're going to be a teacher. You went to go study business because you're going to own your own business. Tell us what your thoughts were. And maybe they were coaching. Usually, as a 17, 18-year-old kid, coaching's not in the thought process at that point, but maybe it was. Talk to us about that transition.
Yeah, well, as most all of our, guys at the high school level, they're um, especially the ones that are dual sport type of athletes. Being all state in football and track, you're going to have to make a decision. You know, Probably your junior year in high school, whether you want to go the football route or the track route. Very few can do both at a Division I level, so you kind of need to figure out. And it's fairly quick decision for me. I'm kind of an undersized, um, you know, when it comes to football, I'm
Right.
undersized for the positions that I played
Right.
on the defensive line.
Right.
So you just have to pick your battle, and I didn't want to fight the battle going up against a 6'8", 300-pound offensive lineman from wherever.
Right.
Uh, so I kind of knew I needed to go the track and field route.
Okay.
I had opportunities at the Division I level in football. Um, um, Money wasn't as good as what I was seeing at the track level. So, obviously, and my passion and love for track and field. So it was kind of a no-brainer that we needed to go the track route. So,
I always like to ask this question, and you maybe have just answered it. Were you a track guy? Were you a thrower who played football, or were you a football player who threw? And it sounds like you were the former. You were a thrower who also played football,
yes,
or at least
yeah.
evolved into
I
that.
mean, my passion really resided with throwing the discus and
Hmm.
shot. So, um, yeah, I was kind of a track guy playing football.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
What was it? Stay there for a second. When you talk about your passion was throwing the discus, that's a fairly cerebral event, right? There's a lot of things that you got to do and do right, and you can do wrong, and you actually have to. It's not pure aggression. You can't just go out there and just where the shot put is
right.
closer, air quotes there, but closer to pure aggression. Obviously, a lot of technique there too. But the discus, like there's a lot of thinking that has to happen with that.
Oh
What
yeah.
what, what was it about like your eyes kind of lit up when you were like, I was a discus guy. What was it about that event that was like, oh yeah, this is really who I'm supposed to
I
be?
think some of the self research that I did on my own going home, after practice, it's what I did after practice, what's what makes you good.
Mm,
Some of the things that I thought about, watched, and prepped my mind, and um, understanding the physics behind throwing a discus
hmm
and the way it feels to throw it correctly was so addictive. And I think a lot of the discus throwers that are successful today can say the same thing that, you know, during training and the way it feels to throw the discus correctly and throw it far, it's effortless, that
hmm
effortless throw.
hmm
You hear a lot of the record holders describe the record throw as effortless. It just felt amazing.
hmm
Um,
hmm
it was kind of like a daily thing for me. I'd go out and really prepare for practice and try to do my best every single day. Um, to the point where I'm racing the sun going down every single day, going home completely exhausted, and then learning how to recover by the end of the week for the competition on the weekend. So, and usually that would you know help me to throw a personal best, um, throughout almost every, I'd say probably almost every week.
Wow.
I remember when I was a freshman in high school, converting to that 1.6 discus was a challenge. And I felt so defeated week 1 and 2 because that discus wasn't going anywhere. And it was March, no, it was February in Texas. In Texas, track season starts in February
Right.
sometimes. And I remember throwing the discus in Wheeler, Texas, and snow was on the ground. And I wanted to go out there and throw 160 feet, kind of where I was in a year ago with that 1K. Super motivated, super prepared mentally, and it just didn't happen. And I was just, oh my gosh, I think I even got beat by my own teammate, and that really hacked me
Oh
off.
yeah.
So I had to learn to um, be more patient mentally and just take it slower
Yeah.
and allow the season to mature. When I was, even today, I tell my athletes, March, I don't really care about March,
hmm
distances in March because I mean the weather conditions aren't really favorable. We're trying to adapt physically to what we're trying to do through the training, and but when April rolls around, we should be in good shape to start hitting some better marks. And
hmm
so I had to learn that as an athlete
mm
that you know March is a transition month. Um, take it as a grain of salt. But whenever April rolls around, we kind of need to be ready to hit marks because not only the weather temperature is warmer, we usually have more favorable wind conditions for further throws, and that's true. Um, so
mm.
that's whenever I started working with high school kids
Yeah.
20 years ago when I was 24 years old. I had to basically teach that to them and get them, you know, mentally and physically ready for April and May.
Right.
So, but
Well,
anyways,
I like how you put that about that the release when you get a good release that you were addicted to. It's like, oh, that
yeah, it's
feeling
just a
right
feeling.
there. Yeah, I
It's
love
the
that.
feeling.
All right, so you're going more towards the track side than the football side. Where'd you end up going, and what'd you end up majoring in? What were you thinking about
Uh,
becoming as a professional?
uh, well, I chose Sam Houston State
Yeah, is that right?
is
You're a
as
Bearcat.
a yeah,
Yeah,
it's a university just northeast of Houston.
yeah.
I took several visits to other places. I felt uh, more connection with the coach there, Chris Gonzalez, who was also a thrower at Sam Houston, and he was very dominant. Um, I liked his coaching style. just the environment they had at Sam Houston. They had a group of guys and girls that made it feel amazing at practice. Um, it's just the camaraderie and the environment at Sam Houston at the time. That's what
Mhm.
kind of drew me. And they paid for my school, so I'm very grateful for that. So,
Absolutely.
um, but yeah, Sam Houston was a great place for me to
Yeah.
learn and grow from not only Coach Gonzalez, but the other coaches that came after Chris when he left.
Mhm.
Um, so I really appreciate and enjoyed learning from different individuals at Sam Houston who, you know, I've taken so many variables and coaching pointers from a lot of folks that I
Mhm.
learned from Sam Houston. So
What was it about? You mentioned you liked Coach Gonzalez's coaching style. For someone who, you grew up throwing literally from infancy to, what you did as a high
mhm,
school senior with one coach, Coach Bragg. So, he had a style that obviously you liked some of it because you kept with it and stayed with them.
right.
What was it about Gonzalez and were there similar styles between Gonzalez and Bragg, or like what drew you there and what was it
Well,
about what
just
style?
watching a normal practice, just a couple of days that I was there on visit,
Mhm.
I would listen to some of the coaching cues and watching some of the drills,
Mhm.
and it's just things that were very similar to what I was already doing, and some of the cues and the words that he used or
Mm.
chose to use as effective cues. Those were important to me to hear,
Yeah.
and it was just the other guys that were there at the time that were they almost had a competition at a practice every day. They
Yeah.
would just duke it out at practices, almost like a mock meet in practice, kind of that scenario. This
Right.
kid was, I was probably visiting at the end of the week, so they were probably doing like a mock situation, but it was competitive at practice, and
Yeah.
practice seemed to be fun. It was a fun environment, uh, good environment to learn,
Yeah.
and just a good work environment there.
And did you have several, like, did Gonzalez move on? You had several
Oh yeah.
throwing coaches at Sam Houston?
Yes, Daryl Robinson, who coached a little bit at Riots. He coached at quite a few places, but he was very instrumental in the coaching uh, methodology that he chose to use was different than Coach Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Everyone was different, but I got a different angle from a lot of folks. And then Curtis and Charlotte Collier. Um, I was let's see, they came in 2 year my last 2 years at Sam Houston.
Hmm.
Those um, uh, Curtis and Charlotte were my coach, and
Mhm.
they were very good. Charlotte was a hammer thrower from Denmark, and so honestly, you know, I listened to the way that she taught the hammer and talked about it and the drills and the cues and her methodology of hammer coaching. Basically, it stuck with me. I didn't get to start coaching hammer until probably 2015. So I had to really like think back 15 years ago when I was at Sam Houston when Charlotte was trying to uh, coach me in the hammer,
Right.
So I had to really remember, but she did a good job of explaining hammer throw and the way it was thrown and um, her approach, the things that I remembered, so I can transfer it to from a high school kids.
It's interesting. This reminds me of I can't, it was a past guest we've had where they had, and I can't remember what I don't think they were throwers, but they had a different coach every year. So like they graduated 4 years, they had four different coaches. I was like, oh man, that's got to be hard on you. And I remember they said, well, it wasn't great. Obviously, I wish I'd had maybe one. They said, but because I became a coach, I actually got to see four different unique ways of coaching to help direct how I coach. So when you said that, like, oh, we had a few, it's like,
Well,
oh, but that would, you would kind of think, if I were to ask you your freshman year, hey, would you like the same coach all 4 years? You're like, oh yeah, of course, I'd love to, to have that. But then you look back on it, it's like, oh, well, I got to experience him and how they coach. I experienced her and how she coach. Like you got to see, and then what
yeah,
coaching is kind of an amalgamation of all the things and the ways that you were coached and coaching education that you take, and that's how you develop your style. You're able to take all those
sure.
individuals to move towards your style.
Well, that's another transition that, athletes have to make is, you know, moving from one coach to another. You absolutely have to learn how to transition through those different coaching styles. Moving from Mr. Bragg was a big transition for me as
Right.
far as like, man, I enjoy being at practice with Mr. Bragg,
Right.
and listening to his motivating stories almost every day. But uh, learning to embrace Coach Gonzalez's method and the way he coaches, you know, I could have, you know, probably gotten upset or um, not done as well
Yeah.
from moving coach to coach. But you kind of have to step back and say, hey, I'm getting a different angle from
Yeah. Yeah.
another source that I can use later on
Yeah.
because I knew I was already going to coach even long ago. But um, just become a sponge and evaluate kind of the information and the way they talk about different events and their approach and methodology of coaching shot and discus and hammer. The later I can really explain it to someone else.
What's that saying? Life is less about what happens to you and more about how you react to that. So yeah, you just said it there when you're like, I could have gotten upset. I don't know how that would have been good for you,
Yeah.
right? But it's like,
Well,
okay, here's what's in front of me. I better make the
right.
best of it. Yeah.
Well, Coach Gonzalez was a great coach and a great mentor. And, for the coach to, take another path and it kind of hit us all sideways.
Sure.
But it's learning how to, to go through those adversities and, embrace something new and just be patient and see if there's something new to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the approach that you have to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
wish more people had that approach.
it's so common though to have multiple coaches,
Yeah.
almost every year at smaller Division I schools and maybe even Division II, Division III, all the way down to NAIA schools is, coaches come and go
Yeah.
at those places. And, you know, don't think the replacement's not, you know, worthy of coaching
Or better for
or
you.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can be better.
Well,
Absolutely. You have to give that a chance. So,
our number one episode here is probably rightfully so, Boo Schexnayder, right?
right.
And when we had Boo on the show, he was talking about like ego as a coach and things like that. And he's like, if
Hmm.
you're really doing it for the kids, because he is a huge favor of if you have a better opportunity as a coach, particularly if it pays more, because we don't pay our coaches very much, you should take it and don't
Hmm.
let the excuse of the kids are here, I recruited them, et cetera, et cetera. And his statement was, how do you know that you go into someplace else, a coach that's better for those kids that you love, right? You recruit them, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't come in and it's better for them. And it's like, ooh, that's hard on the ego, right? Because we want to say as coaches, well, I'm the best for these kids.
Right.
And so it's kind of hard to sometimes think it's like, well, you're right. Maybe the next. So you're telling me that from the athlete perspective of like, man, I came here from Gonzalez. What do you mean he's leaving? Oh my gosh. And it's like, well, maybe the person who comes in next is even better for you. Not that doesn't mean better than Gonzalez. It just means better for you where you are. You're a couple years into college throwing at that point. Maybe you have a different mindset of what throwing and coaching in college could be. There's a whole lot of factors in there. We
No, that's
can't be
true.
scared and be angry of something we have no control over. You ain't going to get Gonzalez. If you'd have gotten angry about it, Gonzalez doesn't stay just because you got angry about it. Right.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, you said coaching was in your mind. So as you were looking into schools and things like that, were you like I'm going to be a coach like even this early as like a high schooler or college or
Oh
where did that
yeah.
start?
I was, being sports oriented for my whole youth
Hmm.
years that, I kind of already knew I was going to make a coach.
Is that right?
But yeah, I mean, I went to Sam Houston. I majored in kinesiology and
Oh yeah.
minored in chemistry. Um, I just needed a 4-year degree and get the heck out of there. But
Yeah, hey, I know that one. This public relations major guy right here. Trust me, that's what I was saying. Were you when you were thinking of this idea of like, okay, I'm sports oriented. I
hmm
love that the culture of sports. And so I'm going to become a coach. Were you thinking, or did you even have any kind of mind space of like, oh, I'm going to become a high school coach, a college coach, outside a private sector coach? Did you have any thought about that, or was it just like, hey, I'll figure that part out. I just know I want to coach.
I knew I was going to be kind of more of an individual coach
Hmm.
outside the school setting.
Hmm.
Working for somebody else is not really
Sure.
what I enjoy the most, but
Yeah.
creating my own world and making things work, um, that's what I enjoy. You know,
And you graduated high school in what year?
oh, high school, 2000,
So college,
so
call it roughly 2004, 2005.
2004. I graduated 2004 from Sam Houston.
It's interesting that you said you already kind of had that mindset of like, oh, I'm going to be more private sector because
Hmm.
it's rare today. It's 2025, and I don't know if I can count on my hand, specifically in throws, private sector type throws
Yeah,
coaches, not counting elite coach like I'm not counting Don Babbitt, because he coaches
right.
pros, he coaches for universities. I'm not counting. I'm talking about
Sure.
people like yours situation. I don't know that I could name five people. So it was super rare back then. It's rare today, but you kind of had that mindset even back then of like, all right,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
have to figure out and
Well,
forge this myself.
that's the impact that Mr. Bragg had on me.
Oh, because Bragg didn't coach at the
He
high
didn't coach. He
school,
wasn't. He
or didn't
was
teach at the
his.
high school, didn't
He
teach at the
actually
high
had a
school.
machine shop in the town. I mean, Mr. Bragg
Oh,
had he
interesting.
he fabricated farm equipment, and he was a welder in the town. He had his own machine shop, and but after 5 o'clock when the door shuts, he's down at the discus ring coaching his
Interesting.
son and his daughter, and then here I come banging on his doors like, hey, I want to learn what you're teaching them. That looks so much fun.
That's what fascinates me. We try to, and I say we meaning kind of society,
Hmm.
try to boil down coaches to, oh, they coach X's and O's. They know how to
Yeah.
teach a kid to release the discus, or they know how to, set up a relay, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And certainly that is part of coaching for sure. But
Hmm.
there's such a greater part to it. Bragg was teaching you about life without even probably knowing that he was like he was setting this
Oh,
example that you're just like you're taking it all in. You're like, oh wow, so he owns a business. Oh, and at 5 o'clock, okay, the shop closes, and then he starts like, that's pretty interesting. You
no,
already
that's
were kind of as a 17,
100%.
16, 17 year, 18-year-old kid, you're absorbing this. No one has a clue what this turns into, but you're absorbing this. That's super
It's
interesting.
the quality and the impact of one-on-one teaching
Yeah.
outside of a school setting
Uh-huh.
that just boosts your confidence
That's so interesting.
times 10. I mean, literally times 10. I mean,
What a great lesson about someone is always watching you. And usually
mhm.
we take that in the negative of like, hey, be good because someone's always watching you. This is more of like, hey, someone's always watching you and the impact you make. And I know, I assume Mr. Bragg, I love how you call him Mr. Bragg and not Coach Bragg, by the way. But Mr. Bragg knows like what impact he made on you. I know you well enough. You're the kind of guy that you would say, hey, Bragg, man, look, this is because of you. You started this foundation. But I wonder, no, I don't wonder. I know, even you, Caleb, that there are people that have seen you move in this world, specifically track and field, that you have no clue about, that are doing something because they saw like, well, man, Caleb's doing that. That's pretty cool. Maybe I could do that. That's the, sometimes we know about the impact right in front of us, kids that we coach and they PR,
Oh
go to
yeah.
college, we see that. There is right in the rear view mirror, there's a just as big impact that we have no idea that we're making positively, specifically as coaches in this sports. That's really cool
I've
to,
I've got athletes that are competing right now for universities that I know they're going to make good coaches. They,
yeah.
just by the relationship we had whenever I coached them.
That didn't even think they were going to become coaches. Like they
Right.
were they were going to go, you know what? Yeah, I love throwing Coach Seal, but I'm going to become a
Right.
doctor. I'm going to become a lawyer. And it's like, wow, you know what? One day you're going to become a coach, dude.
Well, one of my high school athletes right now, I can turn him loose and he could coach the hammer just about as good as any collegiate coach
Wow.
around. I
That's
promise you.
so cool.
And
I
so
love
I
it.
can trust him, and I can be working with some discus guys over here, and then trust my athlete over here that
Yeah.
and he actually helped a teammate get to nationals, the indoor nationals.
Wow. That's
So
so cool.
it is
I love it. I love it.
just watching the
Okay.
kids help each other.
So you go through 4 years at Sam Houston, you have a couple of
Hmm.
coaches, you have some success, you're studying kinesiology, I'm going to coach and probably I'm not a high school or college teacher coach type situation. So what do? You get that degree. What's the first thing?
I get the degree and start looking for a job. I need a job that I could you know in an industry that holds my interest and that I could do well in. And oil and gas industry drew me to Tulsa,
Hmm.
and
So
so I
that's how
worked
you got
in.
to Tulsa. Got it.
That's
Okay.
how I got to Tulsa, the
Hmm.
oil and gas industry. And so I worked in the engineering department. I started working downtown Tulsa at a oil and gas, a
Wait, wait.
private
So
company.
hold on. So oil and gas,
Yep.
but your major was kinesiology. So how
But
does that?
I had that strong science background with the
Oh, right, right,
chemistry
right.
minor.
Okay, okay, okay. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So the physics and the math and the
Okay. I was trying to figure out how that
chemistry,
connected there at all. Right, right, right.
it was all there.
I was like, did you join them to become like their health and wellness coordinator? What did you
Right.
do here?
No,
Right.
no, I was actually a part of their development team on the well, basically the engineering department. Um, so running financials and you know creating wellbore diagrams, and
Yeah, very, very
a lot of
interesting
folks don't
stuff.
know what
Yeah,
that is, but
yeah, yeah, very interesting. Very
anyways,
interesting. Yeah, yeah. It's not an
a lot
oil.
of engineering work.
It's not an engineering or oil podcast here, Clay. All right, let's
No,
keep
right.
going. So you're
Oil
doing
and
that.
gas.
Did you immediately start coaching, or where does that come in?
Yeah. So after 5 o'clock, I would just look for one person that I could possibly work with. And I was at the Division I regional meet at the University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And yeah, a guy with the same with a ball cap on it had my hometown on it. Had brought his daughter and his son there to watch the regional meet, and I just offered to work with them. If you guys need some help, sure. Um, Thought they would probably call me November, December, January. It got to like March. I was like, oh, I bet they probably won't call. But then they did. You know, the young lady threw in her first track meet, 100 feet.
Mhm.
And then dad calls and like, hey, would you mind coming out to the discus ring and helping my daughter? Like, sure, I'll be there 5 o'clock.
When you said hometown, you didn't mean Childers. You meant
No,
up in Tulsa now.
yes, Owasso.
Well,
So I
okay.
live in Owasso. I live
Yep,
in
yep.
Owasso, Oklahoma, which is
Okay. I,
just
I was trying to
north.
connect how, because you're at the meet
Yes.
in Oklahoma, so in Norman, but I was like, okay,
Hmm.
this is chill. Okay, I was trying to figure this out. Okay,
Right.
so come to the discus ring. Yeah, yeah, the local discus ring. Okay, all right, all
Right.
right.
So yeah, I live here in Owasso. Yeah, they reached out to me, and so yeah, I after work show up at the discus ring and just take it day by day, just working individually, working with them, and she went from 100 to 120 to 130 to 140 the next week. Totally, um, actually, totally skipped the 140s. She went from 130 to 152 in the third or fourth week of just working with her.
No
So
way.
she went 152 her third, basically 3 weeks after I started working with her. And, I was in Childress when I get the phone call and it's like, you're not going to believe this. She just threw 152 feet. And I'm like, what? Wow. Okay. Well, we got something special. So we
Wow.
just took our time and practice was quality. And she continued to progress. She ended up setting the state record. And after 2.5 months of work, she set the state record here in Oklahoma at 100. It was like 158 feet, but at that time, but
Yeah.
she went on and competed that summer and went through 160 feet at the Golden West Invitational out in California. So this is a girl that went from literally like reading books in her room to ending up at the Golden West Invitational by
Right.
June in just a few months.
Okay, lots to unpack there. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, first of all, was she a legit 100 footer? Meaning, like, she really threw 130, but that first meet she threw 100, and they called you like was like 100 like her PR?
She had thrown 120 the previous year,
Okay, okay, that
120,
I,
125, I think.
and I'm not doing that to bat. I'm just trying to. I
Yeah.
mean, I just want to get perspective here. Okay, when
Mhm.
you got called to to come help with her. It's different being a coach than being an athlete, right?
Mhm.
It's different responsibilities. When you're an athlete, you're listening to coach, and how do I take what he or she said so that I can do my craft, throwing in this instance better. When you're coaching, you're now trying to take all those things you've learned and are still learning, and okay, how do I communicate that to her? That's different. Some people can't enjoy that. They just don't. And some people can't do. When you think back to those first couple of days, weeks of practice with her, and so now you're coaching, you're now exporting your expertise to her. Was there like, did you kind of like when I asked you about, did the discus come naturally to you? Did this come like you're like, oh, I
Yes.
get this. I see the frustration. She's not understanding when I say X,
Yeah.
Y, or Z,
No,
so I've got to say it this way.
yeah, it's completely natural. Yeah,
Yeah.
the drills and the cues and the knowing what she's thinking and feeling and
Right.
the frustrations that, you know, helping her through the frustrating points of learning to throw the discus, you know. We basically just take the guesswork out of it,
Yeah.
you know, for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the learning curve was just insane because there was no guessing at it. It's, you know, we do this and this is how we do it.
Mhm.
And things naturally came to her just like it came to me. And we
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
10-foot increases every single week. And in 3 weeks, we're looking back, hey, we're 30 feet from where we were just 3 weeks ago.
Right.
That's pretty
Right.
insane.
It is. It is.
So, and then she
Did
just kept progressing all the way through the summer. So,
Now she had a coach before they called you and said, "Hey, can you come help us out?" How did you? I'll call it handle, but how did you work out? Like, there's somewhere there's a coach going, well, wait, dude, what are you doing? I had her on a plan or
well,
whatever.
she did have a coach before, and that was her dad.
Okay, okay, okay,
She didn't
okay.
have a school coach.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, good, good,
Um,
good.
but dad had a background in throwing. He, was a state qualifier.
Hmm.
He took her as far as he could take her, and then clearly saw that, okay, we were at 120 last year. Now we're at like 108 feet now. I may need to call Caleb here. He
Right.
offered to help, so that's kind of how that worked.
Right. Good, good, good.
So,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And was there any, now looking back on it, not every athlete is going to progress like that. There's a little bit of like, oh man, you can get into a trap. You work with one kid and they go from, 100, 120 to
mhm.
160. It's like, oh, dude, this is easy. I can take any 100, 120 footer, make 160. That's not truth, right? Was there any of like, did you have the next athlete and I'm gonna say only progress 20 feet and you're like, oh man, what the heck?
Well, um, in my experience, I always had a from that point on coaching Kylie Spurgeon, um, my phone rang off the hook. And so I had to figure out a way to manage the kids that were wanting to come and learn.
Hmm.
And so I would have camps and clinics. I had basically Saturday clinics to invite new kids that wanted to learn. Okay.
Right, right.
And then from there, I can hand pick the ones that I wanted to really work with during the weekdays as my
Mhm.
core group. So, um, if any young coaches are out there, that's kind of my method.
Yeah, yeah.
But from my core group, we had maybe 4 or 5 girls. Not many guys. I don't know why, but the girls kind of stuck with it. They were the ones who were really wanting to help, but I always had a good core group that really wanted to work. And out of those five, 4 of them were state champions,
Mm,
different classes here in Oklahoma, almost every single year for, I don't know, 10 years straight.
yeah.
And so we broke a lot of the overall state records. We set most of all the class records in throwing the discus. And then some of the guys started coming to learn as well. And then, we had a couple of guys win the state title.
Wow.
So after we're in our 20th year now, it's 2025. I started coaching in 2005, and
Did,
we,
did that start the throwing club or where did that
yeah,
evolution come from?
yeah. After Kylie, I formed the Silt Throwing Club in 2006. So whenever we started competing her outside of Oklahoma, I
Right.
just came up with the Seal Throwing Club, and then we just competed under that as a
Hmm.
club name. And but yeah, we've always had a good I mean, probably a small core group of throwers every year for 20
Mhm.
years. This thing is not composed of 20 kids. It's composed of like 5 or 6,
Mm.
or like today, we probably have 10 kids within the club, but all of those are college bound kids. They've all worked
Right.
hard, they're dedicated, and they're there every single day.
So we've had lots of high school coaches on the podcast. We've had lots of club coaches on the podcast,
Right.
and there's I'll say always. That's a pretty close to accurate statement. There is typically a friction between the two, right?
Hmm.
A lot of it happens because there's a lack of communication. Some of it happens because of egos. Egos aren't bad. Bad egos are bad. And so there's some of it is ownership, right? Well, that's my athlete. Well, that's my athlete. Things like that. How have you're working outside of the high school setting. So most, not all, there are some kids who are not going to have a throws coach at their school for many, many reasons, right? But most of these kids probably have a throws coach at the school. How have you, I'm going to say handled, and maybe that's not the right word, you can correct me there, the relationship of the high school coach with the athlete and what you do and bring to the table as well, and the parents are involved in all this. How
Yeah.
have you handled that aspect of coaching?
Well, for probably like 15 years, most of the kids that came to the clinics every Saturday didn't have a coach.
Mm,
And so that's what brought them,
hmm
seeking help from somebody. Well, I was a resource for the kids that didn't have coaches. And so that made it so simple.
hmm
I didn't have to fight that battle.
Right.
Um, but now, today, like right now, here in Oklahoma, like every school has a throws coach,
hmm
and so some of them are brand new. Some of them think they know,
hmm
but
There's
you just
certainly
have to,
there certainly is a scale of coaches,
yeah,
not just throws and not just high school, by the way, in college, in sprints, in distance.
right.
There is people who know and are motivated to know everything
Hmm.
about their event, and people who are brand new who have that motivation, but they're still brand new. They have lack of experience. There certainly is that in every aspect. Correct. Yeah.
There, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're good. Yep.
Okay, I just missed the last question you asked.
Well, no, I was just saying that what you're describing there
Hmm.
is not unique to throws nor unique to high school. That there is the gamut of people who know and are motivated in their event for their college or high school or club, whether they're distance, throws, jumps, versus people who are brand new, have lack of experience,
Sure.
or just they think they know and they don't. That's a bad ego aspect. So there is
Right.
that gamut of all the coaches. So you're
Yeah, I
seeing them
think,
all.
yeah, well, I think both sides, school coach and a club coach, I think they have to absolutely, um, be respectful of each other. And, for a school coach to uh, not be in favor of kids or going to a club coach, I think that's hurting an athlete. I
Mhm.
think, um, I think it's good for kids to work with club coaches as long as they have a good 10-year track record.
Mhm.
If a club coach has a great 10-year track record, then there's no issues.
Mhm.
So I think most of the school coaches respect kind of what I've been able to do over the last 20 years, and so I don't. There hasn't been any friction
Mhm.
in that way, and I respect most of the school coaches as well. So you just have to learn to work together.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it's about the athlete.
Mhm.
And the athlete is basically the spotlight. So
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. It's
yeah.
interesting. I think every coach, even including you, Caleb, would say, "I
Hmm.
do it for the kids." Like you just kind of
Yeah.
alluded to. It's like, hey, it's about the athlete, so I do it for the kids. And then
Hmm.
we allow our egos to come in sometimes to go, "Yeah, I do it for the kids, but I don't want them working with Caleb. This is my athlete. They're my high school. They should,
Right.
I'm as good a throws coach as him, whether they are or not. Doesn't matter. We don't rank in that aspect. Uh, but then I'd go to that coach and be like, well, wait, but I thought you did it for the kids. So
Well,
if it's good for the kid to work with Caleb, what's the
I'm
problem?
speaking. I'm speaking for myself. Um, I can learn something from just about anyone,
Hmm
and so I would never. I would never discourage an athlete from going and working with another coach.
Hmm.
You know, as long as they have that track record there and it's been successful. You
Right.
know, I've taken my core group over the last 20 years and we've worked with so many coaches and I've invited so many coaches to come to our practices or small clinics and work
Hmm.
with us.
Hmm.
You know, over 20 years, I can tell you the mentors that I've had will blow your mind that have come to our practices or have we've put on clinics. And we're talking about Mac Wilkins. We're talking about Dave Wallman. Um, I'm talking about, you know, what, in something I failed to mention whenever I was in high school during the summertime, I would go to UCLA and work with Art Venegas.
Did you really? Holy
And
cow.
so a lot of the way I teach and talk comes from those mentors that I've had my career.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're going to hear a lot of, you know, Dave's methodology and um, Art Venegas. The way, you know, I
Mhm.
worked for John Gadina for about 4 years.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That
you're
might
going to see
be
it.
that might be how we were introduced, actually. I'm trying to think. I thought it was before John, but I've worked with John now for a long time. But yeah, that's an
I think
anytime.
so.
Yeah, anytime John name is brought up, I'm good because I just love that guy. It's
Sure.
a dear friend.
Absolutely.
So that's super interesting. I appreciate that. So
Mhm.
where did talk to us about the progression of the seal throwing club because so it started out with dad calling saying, hey, I need help with my
Right.
daughter, and then a couple more kids start joining, and then this it becomes an
Right.
official thing. You started doing this Oklahoma throw series. Talk to us about kind of the progression
Well,
of the club.
the whole Seal Throwing Club thing is not about numbers. I don't have 20
Right.
kids. I don't have 30 kids or 50 kids. I don't want that. I want
Right.
one athlete to work with that has the ability to learn, listen, and to progress, and it's got the physical capabilities of doing
Right.
something at a national level.
Right.
So I'm just looking for one athlete to coach
Hmm.
per year. And, you know, it obviously we have more than one. You know, if I can just keep the numbers down to about 10 kids,
Mhm.
you know, 50% of them will probably be at the national meet.
Mhm.
Um, you know, like over the weekend, we've had 5 athletes out of the 10 compete at the indoor national championships
Hmm.
this year.
Wow.
And 3 of them were All American, and one broke the state record throwing the weight, and the other one was the winner of the emerging elite competition. So all 5 kids did something great.
Right.
And so that's my goal
Hmm.
is to keep things small, quality,
Yeah.
and all 5 kids will go compete at the Division 1 level somewhere. It
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
not be Division 1, that doesn't matter either, but they're all going to go get their school paid,
Yeah.
and that's what's important. Most
Yeah.
important is we did our job. We got them to the next level, and we helped get school paid
Right.
for them.
Right.
College is extremely expensive these days, and so this is one way that I can give back that was, you know, obviously given to me is the gift to coach and to transfer knowledge and to help get somebody from nothing to something and get a college education out of it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a step up in life.
So that is a lot, right? Like if that was your completely what you did
Mhm.
24/7, 365, that's a lot. Even with 10 or 15 kid, whatever, that's a lot. But you've continued to grow this. Where did the throw series start? You were doing that.
Um, right. So honestly, I kind of got bored with teaching shot and discus every single day for 15 years straight, and we're we're basically, you know, winning the state title in every classification in the discus. I'm like, I really want another challenge. So the hammer throw, so learning to teach and talk about and to develop in hammer throwing
Right.
has become, it's been amazing. Uh, from my point of view, not knowing a whole lot about it, you know, 10 years ago, to, you know, taking a group of kids and competing at the national level in the hammer and, you know, placing in the top 6, which is all American status. Um, it's been fun. So just incorporating hammer throw for these high school kids has been so beneficial and
Yeah.
rewarding. but there we had to have a way to develop these kids. You can't just go and take a hammer and go throw at the high school.
Right.
You're throwing a hammer on their football practice field. I mean, you're getting ran off, getting hate emails and texts, and getting ran off from the facility in general.
Right.
But I did find a place that we could have practice and throw the hammer at one of the local high schools. But it's one circle, and we had 10 kids throwing hammer, and so it
Mhm.
wasn't really an efficient way to develop a group of kids that are throwing a hammer. And so a facility of our own is what we've needed for development in the hammer,
Right.
and it's been a way that we can compete. So the Oklahoma Throw Series provided us a way to host competitions every other week, or 10 years ago it was we had a competition every other week, like twice a month, you know. But it gave our kids an opportunity to actually competitively throw the hammer and to get used to that and be rewarded from the work that they put in throughout the week. So Oklahoma Throw Series was for hammer development.
So it was a way you couldn't just add hammers because you need to compete, right?
Yeah.
You could, but like they want to compete, they're kids, and well, what does that mean? So and there was no opportunities out there, so you decided
Oh,
then I'll just create it myself.
right. So creating competition dates that are sanctioned is so important. You can't go anywhere and throw a hammer in USATF meets. There's number one, there's not enough USATF meets within driving distance to go to throw a hammer. And so we basically utilized local high schools to host these competitions for 5 or 6 years um, before Ramona. But we ended up getting run off from almost every location that we held competitions. Uh, it just felt like we weren't really invited, and
Sure.
we were attracting post collegiates at these competitions
Right.
eventually, that were driving 10 hours to be there for the competition. That was just blowing my mind. And then
Yeah.
that's how I met Don Milliken. He showed up as a master's athlete at,
Okay.
um, the 68 year division age group category. But he was there to compete, and he still throws today. And he could clearly see the frustration behind the need for a facility and what I was trying to do for the younger athletes, not only just hammer throwing, but shot and discus too.
Right.
Uh, and most of the facilities here don't have a level field. It was kind of in the backyard throwing type situation, but I was starting to attract a lot of really good throwers.
Yeah.
In fact, we were at a high school, and we had Joe Brown, and we had Rachel Denkoff, and we had uh, so many good Lizzie Virgil, um, so many really good throwers that were throwing discus and hammer. Um, so yeah, one I think I think the break in the straw was the police officer showed up at the competition and was wanting to run us off the facility.
No way.
So yeah, it was. Anyways, we had some high level throwers there, and we weren't very well welcomed at the facility at all, or at the school. So
I love this
that's when
visual.
Don that's when Don approached me. It's like, we need to create our own facility. You need to go out and build your own facility. And here's the green light to do it. So it's up to you to go find the place, um, build it, do whatever you need to do. I'll help fund that.
Yeah.
That
So I love this progression of, first of all, athlete, but then coaching
mhm.
the shot and the discus because that's what you knew and that was your background.
Yeah.
And then like, hey, I want to figure out this hammer thing. Okay, well, there is no just place to go and start learning and coaching that. So I'll figure out my own throwing series. And so you figured that out and started doing that. And you're kind of I kind of got this picture of like a picture that has been like ripped into like, 7, 8, 9, 10 different pieces, and you're scotch taping it together so I can see the picture, but it's still held by
Hmm.
scotch tape, right? It's not a full
Yeah.
picture. And then it's like, okay, well, to get that full picture, I've got to create it my own. I've got to have a facility. So I just love this progression. Are you up to this point? We're about to get into now your own facility here at Throw Town Ramona.
Hmm.
Are you still working in the oil and gas industry, or has this become a full-time thing at this point? Where are you professionally regarding,
Um,
still got to make a
yeah.
paycheck and coaching?
Well, several years ago, oil and gas industry kind of went through some hard times here in Tulsa, lots of layoffs and
Hmm.
lots of companies being shut down and
Yep.
moving to other locations and faced bankruptcy issues. And so I was kind of a part of that downturn in the
Oh,
industry.
okay.
And so really the only thing that kept me sane was just working with high school kids
Hmm.
during the day. And I was okay. That was kind of my medicine. Um,
That's cool.
and I really could not, well, I just didn't feel, uh, I couldn't find a job that I felt like I fit into. You
Right,
know what I
right, right,
mean?
right. Yeah,
And I, uh, you know, the coaching thing has always been a mesmerizing world for me,
right.
experience wise, and it's a joy to go out to practice every day and work with these kids that want to get better.
Yeah,
Um, that's what makes it easy.
yeah,
And to work from Sunday through Thursday, recover, jump on an airplane, and go to a national meet. That's like quite an amazing experience in itself,
yeah, yeah.
and it's an amazing experience for these athletes too. So I just kind of focused on doing the best I can with these kids.
Yeah,
They've always been the focus uh, since
clearly.
day one. So
Did you ever, have you ever considered, I know what you said up front about, working for someone else, but you have been working for other people, right, in the oil and gas industry.
sure,
Did you
yeah,
ever
absolutely.
consider going into college coaching, or even high, you have a kinesiology degree,
Uh,
you could go into high
yeah,
school coaching and teaching. Did you ever consider that?
well, I did coach. I was an assistant coach at the University of Tulsa for about 4 years,
Mhm.
4 or 5 years. That was a great experience. But that's when kind of, I had my children were a lot smaller,
Mhm.
and it was kind of a struggle there with traveling and recruiting and things like that, and then wanting to be home with the kids, and that was a challenge in itself.
Yep.
So um, we had quite a bit of success there at University of Tulsa, with just some younger kid. I mean, basically freshmen, sophomores, breaking the school record at most of all the school records at Tulsa. And then we actually took a guy from Canada and as basically a freshman, qualifying for the Division I national championships indoors in the weight throw. So, taking a guy off the hockey rink in Canada, and then transitioning to the throws world, and
Wow.
3 months later, he's at the Division I national championships. That was mind-blowing experience.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
but some of the coaching um, methodology that I used to develop him rapidly, uh, you know, came from Gary Cooper and John Smith,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
those were my hammer and weight throw mentors. That
Not
really,
bad. Not bad.
I mean, no, it's not bad at all. So yeah, I've had lots of mentors in all this the coaching aspect of this.
So speaking of those mentors, I haven't heard you talk about it, so I'm going to ask it, and then maybe
Mm,
it's because of these mentors. What have you done? I'm a huge proponent of coaching education, and I think of coaching education formally and informally. So formally, USATF level ones and twos, USTF CZCAs, Altus, things like that,
hmm.
right? And then
Sure.
informally, and I don't know that one is more important than the other, or maybe I should say that one is more effective, one is better than the other. Informally, like you mentioned John Smith, and I think like, oh man, boy, get you two at the
Hmm.
top of the stands at a track meet and let you guys just literally hammer it out on how to coach the hammer. Like
Sure,
what an education you would get from a guy like John Smith, right? Or even Connie, right? So what have you done up to the point where we're at, where we're getting close to, we're about to have our
sure.
own facility. What have you done coaching education wise? Has it been more informally, formally? Talk to us about
Not
that.
much,
Yeah.
not much.
Hmm.
I don't have certifications of any kind.
Uh-huh.
I have maybe my level one, maybe 15 years ago, level
Hmm.
one
Hmm.
USATF, level one coaching credential, and that's
Hmm.
it. I'll tell you what, the best coaching education is actually getting on the phone with somebody and
Hmm.
talking for 3 hours,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, or having them come out to practice, or
Hmm.
that's the best coaching education you could possibly get.
Hmm.
And that's what I've always been an advocate for, and that's the
Hmm.
way I operate.
Yeah,
And so,
I would agree with that. Like I said, that's why I say I don't know. And I was a huge coaching education guy, on
mhm,
both sides, but in the formal side. So I did
sure.
USTF ones. I got several level twos. We didn't have USTFCA and
Yeah.
Altus when I was around, but I guarantee I would
I've
have
never gone
probably
through
done
any
it.
of that.
But I think, but I know I can also, and a lot of this happened actually at level twos. I can remember distinctly, even today, it's decades ago now, where, me and a couple of guys and gals were in a room or in the hallway till midnight, 1 o'clock, talking shop. And it was like, oh man, I learned a lot during that. I was like, oh, that works for you at this school. I wonder if that would work for me. And oh, this is how you solve that problem. Well, maybe I should try that. That you don't get in the formal side. So I don't like when you say I don't have many of their certificates. I don't like automatically go, oh well, you aren't doing the thing. The mentor side, the informal side is just as important. Clinics are not formal. They're maybe in between, but those are just as important too. So I like
Well,
this style.
I've had the best mentors in the United States
Mm-hmm.
on the coaching side that you could possibly ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from Art Venegas in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and not only Art. You go to those camps, you got Art. David Dumble was there.
Right.
All of those All-American athletes that he had, Nadakawar, Selela Sua, John
Right.
Godino was there.
Mm-hmm.
Just would blow your mind. Um, you don't think I learned anything from those camps? You're, I was a sponge,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
I was able to do exactly what they were doing. And John, working for John, I went through his coaching
Yeah,
education,
that's
and
right. Mm-hmm.
scored 100 on his test. He called me and was like, "How the heck did you do that? The national average is like 80." And it's like, "You're hired. You're going to work for me." And I worked, uh, did the drills for all of his classes. So
Right.
um, he put me to work. For example, in Albuquerque in July, you could literally take my shirt and wring it with sweat
Mm,
after doing all of the drill demonstration,
yeah.
and so I know how to do the drills and the cues to the point where you're dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
So um, Mac Wilkins has been a great mentor over I don't know 15 years.
Yeah.
Dave Woolman has also been a great mentor. So I
Yep.
have this large toolbox of different resources and tools in order to be able to fix somebody
Yeah.
or fix anything. Uh, I swear that a kid can come with a bad habit or a problem, and I promise you, we'll find a way to fix it.
Yeah.
Um,
The
anything's
throws,
fixable. It's
the
it's it's anything.
the
So
throws seem to lend themselves more to the, hanging around the discus ring, and you got a few athletes doing
yeah.
things. And I don't know if it's because it's slower, meaning, I can see a discus specifically or a shot putter, more than someone runs a fly 30 in the sprints. I can still see that obviously, but it's harder to go, oh, okay, yeah, you see where his foot was there. Watch, now I'm going to tell him to do this,
Mhm.
and that'll be the cue. Where in throws, it's like, oh, yeah, you see how the hand dips? Well, to do that, we're going to talk about the step behind that. That'll help, it just seems to
Sure.
lend itself more to that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
to that type of almost like, I don't know, like I keep thinking like garage style of education, like, oh, we're just hanging out drinking beers and coaching,
Hmm.
don't do that at the ring, but you know what I'm saying, kind of that imagery
Right.
of that. I'm sure that actually
That's
has
right.
also happened at rings before as well. Okay, so we're continuing the progression athlete to coaching shot put and discus. Hey, I want to do the
Hmm.
hammer. So, well, I got to figure this out and do this Oklahoma throw series, which I love knowing, what we're about to get into, how like that throw series, you had to learn a lot about putting on meets, certification, those kind, like this all is building up to what
Yeah,
is coming
absolutely.
today. It's
Just
correct. Quite
just learning
amazing.
how to paint a sector line straight. You
Yeah.
know, it's got to be straight. And the right degrees.
Right, right, right. I
So
love how all this is building up. Okay, so you meet Don. Don's like, "Look, I can see the frustration. I'll help support this, but you're gonna have to go out and do this."
do the
So,
work.
talk to us about this infancy, because it's one thing to say I want my own facility, and I said this before we hit record. I obviously in the position that I'm in, not only with Gill, but what I do and how I do it for track and field. I hear this a lot, right? Like I hear I've been pitched on a million pole vault series, a million throws only facilities, et cetera, and the vast majority don't ever come to fruition for many, many reasons. Not necessarily because of the coach. Finances is typically the biggest one. Land is the biggest one
Mhm.
that stops people from doing things. But you've done it and you've done it successfully. So talk to us about the process. You already kind of gave us an insight into like how we picked Ramona, but give us a insight into like really kind of peel the onion back here so that people that are
Yeah.
listening can learn from this as well. Like some of the mistakes you made or some of the roadblocks that you found that you had to get over. Like let's help kind of maybe remove those from other people so they can, maybe we have more facilities, throws, jumps, sprints, etc. Talk to us about the journey of Throws Town.
Well, the start was meeting Don Milliken for one.
Yep.
But he had the same passion as I do. So it was so easy. And he could see the vision of what I was trying to do. So that also made that transition so easy.
Mhm.
Um, for two people to see it, the same vision and experience some of the same frustrations, um, just made the experience easy.
Right.
Um, Don gave me the green light to go out and find um, a, a place or some property, to build a basic throwing facility that we can host competitions. These competitions, obviously would get sanctions for these and then allow some of our post collegiate and professional athletes. It basically just gives them opportunity to hit marks, qualifying marks for bigger competitions later.
Mhm.
That was kind of the other avenue other than youth development, is providing um, opportunity for our professional athletes.
Mhm.
And so there's two sides to this, to be able to provide for different groups of athletes, basically,
Mhm.
which is a huge need. There's just not that many competitions that are sanctioned
Right.
correctly in the United States
Right.
at the world athletic level for these professional athletes, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
Um, so, and for our youth athletes, this is a uh, perfect vehicle for development. We
Mhm.
train through the week. We compete on the weekend and not have to travel anywhere.
Mhm.
What's better than that, other than
Yeah.
going and qualifying for these national meets?
Right.
Perfect scenario.
Right.
We have a great facility for hammer throwing now.
Okay, I'm gonna dig the onion, peel the
Yep.
onion back here a little bit. You're already into the competitions and things like that, and that's
Hmm.
great. That's amazing. That's the end result, right? That's where we are today.
Right.
Go back. So you find a piece of land.
Okay.
Land, no matter how perfect the land is, it's not
Hmm.
ready. So you have to
No, it's
figure
not.
out, how do I grade this thing? What do I do? You had to call
Well,
people, including myself, about cages and facilities and things like
sure.
that.
So,
That's the part that trips people up. I don't want to say it's
yeah.
easy to hold a competition because your own, and we'll get into that, the own hills that you have to climb for that. But I'm talking about just the groundwork of like, okay, I see it, I see the vision. Oh, but this guy just put a roadblock in front of me. Oh, now I got to figure out this side of it. Give me the nitty gritty on that.
Well, once I narrowed this thing down, I found a place in Ramona.
Hmm.
Only had two sheds that was full of farm equipment.
Hmm.
Had a fence where cows were basically were grazing, and they were basically running cattle on the place,
Hmm.
and storing their farm equipment. Um, I called Don, come out, come take a look at this. We literally like walk out in the middle of the property, and wind has got our shirt just completely uh,
Okay.
tied back and can't even keep my ball hat on. And I was like, "This is the place, Don. This is what I really want."
Right.
And and he agreed. But the obstacle about the property was it had a huge hill in the middle of it.
Okay, here we go. Yep.
Um, so we were kind of worried about that. So should we just turn it back and go find another place? And
Right, right.
you know, I think the buildings being on the property was basically the catch to moving forward with it.
What do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
the hill was definitely a setback,
Hmm.
but so he called. It's like he called. I was probably in Texas again. He basically um, suggested that we just cut that heel just back a little bit and put a discus ring there, and we have just enough room. But in my mind, it's like we're gonna have to take out the whole heel, and he's gonna have he's gonna see that. And we got to that point where we're gonna have to take the whole heel out
Mm.
and use the dirt that we had to build our foundation, our field,
Right.
our throwing field. So if if you go out to Ramona and you walk out on the field, you're basically walking up on a 10 to 12-foot incline to get to the field.
Huh.
We took the dirt that we already had and then just spread it. We worked you know I think the whole thing, what has made the the development of Ramona was finding an engineer,
Mm.
um, which was Amy Baker,
That's
who
right.
was a javelin thrower at University of Oklahoma.
That's right.
She's an engineer now.
Yeah.
And so I called Amy uh, for some recommendations for my own kids. Like, hey, you remember Amy Baker? Yeah, I sure do. Well, so I called Amy and gave her my pitch, and she was on board immediately.
Yeah.
It's like a dream project for her.
Hmm.
So she helped me get my elevations. She did all the engineering work.
Right.
Um, my next obstacle was hiring the correct guy to do the dirt work. That was
Hmm.
the most critical piece to this whole thing.
Hmm.
That's a
Hmm.
lot of dirt that we moved to to make Ramona or Throwtown. Um, and I can't remember. It was like 100,000 uh, cubic feet of dirt or something like that. It was an enormous amount of dirt that we moved to build the field up. It needed to utilize the dirt that we had on the property, so we're not trucking in dirt, costing
Right.
money. But so we solved two problems. We we got rid of the hill, and then number two, we now have a level playing field, throwing field. So that's kind of how it was developed. Is
It,
finding
was
a
there
good engineer and a dirt.
was there any time during that you're like, oh, I don't think this is gonna work?
Oh no, no,
No.
no. I hand sketched this on a napkin and
I
gave it to
remember
Amy like
that.
right away,
Yeah, I
like
remember
within
that.
15 minutes, because I already had this planned out in my mind
Yeah,
long
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Um, I think the obstacles were whatever the dirt guy was experiencing or Amy was experiencing on the engineering side of finding
Hmm.
ways to make things happen.
Right.
Because there were some obstacles um, that we faced, but nothing too serious.
Hmm.
Um, like how's this field going to drain, and how are we
Hmm.
going to keep the field together? So
Hmm.
we've got some retaining walls that we experienced and some drainage issues
Right.
and fixed, and then outfitting the buildings or the sheds into buildings that we could use as conference or athlete um, hangout,
Yeah.
kind of hangout building, and then our own weight room. So I built, well, we basically outfitted one of the buildings and turned it into a weight room. And so most everything came off of Marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but it's the best garage gym that you could ever imagine. You know, it's everything that we need. And to see professional athletes in there working out and they love it. That's
Yeah.
uh, it's make that made my day. So
No, no prima donnas there. I know that.
no,
Yeah.
they no. In fact, they're sometimes working without the lights on. It's like we have lights, guys. Flip,
We do
turn the
have that.
lights on. You know,
So you
you
get the
know.
land. There's a lot of work you have to do with the land. No matter what you get,
Yeah.
there's work to do with land. You got this big hill, so you got to figure that out. The buildings. What'd you do with the cows? Did you get them
Oh
shusted
yeah.
to the other
They
side of
they
them?
yeah. Before we closed on the property, they had to move the cows
Okay,
off the
good, good,
property,
good,
and
good.
I took down the fence because I knew that we're fixing to do some dirt work. So I took the fence down,
All right.
and yeah, that's kind of how it all got started.
And when you did this napkin sketch, and I remember you calling me,
Uh-huh.
telling me about the napkin because that's like a stereotypical like TV movie thing, and it's like no, Mike,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
literally had a napkin. I was like, all right, here. And then Amy
yep,
professionalizes it. I remember seeing
yeah.
her drawing, the first drawing that she did there. So you get that. How has it evolved? And what I mean by that is when you initially put in the cages and circles and things like that, is that what it is today? Or was it like, okay, let's get through the first
No,
cage and circle and then we'll
yeah.
add? How's that evolved from
Well,
only in three
well,
years, by the way?
from the napkin sketch to where it is today, we've got it's close, but it wasn't. There was things that we had to move around to fit the pieces to the puzzle, and then how do
Right,
you get a 120-foot javelin runway to fit the puzzle too? And I'm like,
right,
Amy, you're the jav thrower. Are you going to be happy to come here to throw the javelin? And if you say yes, then I'm good with it.
right,
And
right.
she found ways to move things around and fit the pieces, and we have like two 20 by 50 drill pads that we can fit,
Mhm.
10 kids on to do drills.
Wow.
Um, we now have 6 discus rings and 2 shot rings, um, and one huge hammer cage.
Yeah.
So we have everything covered
Yeah.
from just about every direction.
So, okay, appreciate that. That's helpful for people to see.
Hmm.
Like sometimes chuckle. I'll have a coach. It's usually not a coach actually, but I'll have someone call me and say, "Hey, we want to build an indoor facility. How much would it cost?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, our side of it will be this much. Do you have land? There's your first cost. Oh, walls. There's your second. Those are way
Right.
more expensive. So it's not just as easy as like, oh, I want to do this. Like, there's a lot of logistics here. So I appreciate you kind of like I said, peeling that onion back and let us see
Right.
in those aspects. So now you get it done. And I don't want to say that's the easy part because that is
Well,
hard, but one of the hardest things to build and
hmm
easiest thing to destroy is culture. And what you have grown there is like this is a throws mecca. This is throws
yeah.
town. So how did you again, I alluded in during our intro about, the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. That's sort of true.
Right.
There's a lot of times you build stuff, people don't come. And then other times you build it and they do come and you forget, holy crap, here they are. I got to figure them out. So how
Yeah.
did you build to this, again, you had the Oklahoma Throws series. Now you're doing this Throws Town series. You got, world record last year, world leaders this year. How did it, like, as soon as you cut the
Well,
ribbon and opened and everybody just started coming, or
no.
how did you get the word out? How do you build now
Right.
what you built as far as the competition side of it all?
So once Amy did her work and we had the engineering completed and the dirt work was completed, we needed a surveyor to make ensure that the field is level as World Athletic calls for.
Right.
They have stipulations on
Strict.
just about everything. And so, and really, it's the time frame when I called you. It's like, hey, I'm going to need like 6 discus rings. I need a hammer cage. I don't know. It's like $250,000
Mhm.
worth of facility
Right.
equipment.
Right.
You know, none of that's cheap, but
Right.
we absolutely have to have it, and it's got to be within World Athletic specs.
Right.
So that's when you and I kind of
So you
together
had the
this.
idea when you because okay, sorry to keep interrupting, but I
Mhm.
hear this a lot too, where someone will want to build a facility and they're like, oh, but I want to I want to host World Athletics meets, and the number of World
Yeah,
Athletics meets actually held in America is I definitely can count on one hand basically. Actually, you've made it to where I have to count two hands now. So I'm always telling people like, hey, build to your clientele. If you're going to host more high school or college or club, build to that. World Athletics you can figure out later. Uh, but you had that mind of like, oh no, I want to hold big time
right.
comps here right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to spend this kind of money, we want to do it right the first time.
Good point.
And so, um, we need to build this so that we can host sanctioned competitions
Mhm.
that would encompass our professional athletes. And so can't we can't take shortcuts.
Mhm.
We got to make sure everything's correct and to World Athletic Standard, and make sure that our engineering's done correctly and our dirt work's done, and have everything surveyed from a third party surveyor.
Mhm.
And so those people that helped me build Throwtown were very intricate in those aspects,
Right.
um, so that we can meet World Athletics specs. I mean,
Mhm.
and all of our rings and cages are up to specs, and toe boards and javelin runways, and so it's again, it's the people that helped build Throwtown, and that they've made Throwtown Ramona what it is today,
Mhm.
um, just by doing a great job of, from engineering the dirt work and surveying, and all the pieces to the puzzle fit. Um, and you'll be surprised, at the World Athletics level, your sectors have to be a certain length and
Mhm.
obviously width, the arcs and whatnot, trees, but they have to be a certain length.
Mhm.
You have to have an area that can, reach out to 90 meters,
Mhm.
to have these type of throwers here that can throw 70 to 75 meters with a discus. You're going to have some room to do that.
Right.
And so the decision of taking the heel out was the right decision. Um, and just working, letting Amy do her due diligence on the engineering side, and trusting that that's correct. And
Mhm.
the dirt guy, absolutely was master at his craft. At
Mhm.
working the dirt every day, and I was out there working with him, and overseeing the operations, the daily operations that went on, just making sure that we get it right.
Yeah.
We're spending an awful lot of money to do this. Um, we just don't want to go back and do it over again. So
Right, right. Okay, so you build this monumental task to do. First of all, just to build. If you'd have just built it, no one would have showed up, and I still been like, man, it's pretty impressive, Caleb. But now you built it,
yeah,
and now, okay, well,
and we need to
we,
prove it.
yeah, we need to
We
have
absolutely
athletes
have to
here.
prove it.
What
So
was the first meet like? Like, was it nerve wracking? Oh, and by the
no.
way, we're kind of even glossing over a little bit. And you had mentioned at the
Mhm.
beginning of, okay, so you have a meet. Well, you still need to have officials and all this. I mean, there's so much to this. It's unbelievable. This is not just
Yeah. Oh,
it's simplified when I say,
organization.
yeah, it's simplified when I say, if you build it, they will
Mhm.
come. Oh, there is so much more you have to do to
Yeah,
actually run
there
this
is.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to have individuals that uh know the sport, know the events, and how to officiate it. And so, you know, we have the officials that I've used in the past for the Oklahoma Throw Series. They continued to help me when I got Throw Town Ramona built.
Mhm.
But my man, hats off to Devin Randall. He was a thrower at Arkansas, and he happened to move back home to the Tulsa area. Um, he was originally uh, 20 minutes north of Throw Town Ramona, growing up. So he moved back. So I reached out to him to see if he would help me on the officiating side of making this whole thing work.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at Throwtown, I think Devin Randall's probably pretty much um, marked every discus that's hit the ground out there. You know, thousands of throws that
Yeah.
he helped me mark, and so I really appreciate Devin's contribution to the officiating side of this. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it without him, obviously. Um, and then we have some other officials that can help watch the circle
Mhm.
for calling fouls and whatnot. But my job is shooting the laser. I run the laser. Um, well, yeah, not much coaching going on, but
Yeah, sure.
I'm shooting every mark, and Devin and I have shot pretty much every discus that's ever been thrown out
Wow. How did you get the word out? Like, how do people know?
there.
Like,
Strictly word of mouth.
yeah.
Some of the guys that had already competed in some of the Oklahoma Throw Series at the high school meets, at the high school locations. they were already eager to come and try it out. And so, on good days in April, I mean, those guys have thrown so many throws everywhere, different universities, different championship meets,
Mhm.
and to come here and throw a 4 meter PR
Mhm.
just spoke volumes to me. Like we got
Mhm.
it right, like a Josh Sarachan and Darian Brown and Joe Brown and Marcus Gustafsson, and those guys were throwing 4 meter PRs in competitions that I was hosting at Ramona, and it was kind of blowing their mind,
Yeah.
uh, you know, and you'd be surprised how many professional athletes that don't know what a good wind is. Like,
Hmm.
ask them like, what kind of wind do you like? Oh, I like a headwind, or you know, some quartering wind of some sort. But you know, I set them up for like a right cross, and they're experiencing 4 meter PRs,
Mm.
and it just speaks volumes. And then they're getting on the phone and calling. We're gonna get Alex Rose to come and try this out. In a couple of
Right.
weeks. I'm like, sure you are. And Alex, um, Alex came. He called and said, I'm on my way. And so that was really blowing my mind. It's like, man, we're actually going to have an Olympian come and throw here. That's
Yeah.
that's thrown 65 meters. Awesome. And so it was 2000. What was it? 2023 April. Alex, he was kind of frustrated. He had some travel problems, and training hasn't been going all that great. you know, and so he was just, I'm here type of thing. I'm here. We'll throw. We'll see how it
Mhm.
goes. Well, I don't know what throw it was, but he launches the discus and it goes 70 meters 39, which was the world lead. He threw the world leading mark. Um, you know, and he was a consistent 65-meter guy. Just threw the world lead in a 70-meter, his first ever 70-meter
Wow.
toss. And so, yeah, the aftermath of that throw and his reaction for the next hour and a half was just so much fun to watch. He was on the phone with everybody in Congress, like it just blew his mind. And
Do,
so,
so
and that
that
was
go. Sorry.
that 70-meter throw was the Oceana record area. So, yeah.
So I can see how this builds, right? Like,
Hmm.
your high schoolers go there and throw big, and the college kids get wind of it. College kids come and do it. Then your, I'll call it your sub elite, non-Olympians, they start doing it. And we all know, this web of network, and so Alex is like, all right, I hear about this. Let's see, and he goes there and does that. So other people
Yeah.
start paying. I see that. That's amazing. The way it's done so quickly, though, is a little. I mean, that's the interesting part. I mean, it's
It was just growth from year to year. And it's
yeah.
just getting a small group of athletes that had success. And the next year we added to it and we encompassed some of the Olympic throwers, and they were setting enormous records.
Right.
And that one weekend, when Alex threw 70 meters, we also had the African area record, CC, uh, uh, through the African record
Yeah.
on top of Alex's Oceana record. And then Julia Tonks set the Canadian under 20 record.
Wow.
So U20 Canadian record, Julia Tonks threw. Um,
So you've had to learn like all that stuff too. Like when they set records, how
oh
the
yeah,
what is World's War of
oh
Athletics
yeah,
one for all that, the paperwork and all that stuff.
paperwork.
Have you had to deal with, Boston University has a great track and a lot of 5K, very similar in the distance side would be what you just explained, right? Like a lot of Oceania records and American records and things like that. And so every year, and this may just be a distance thing, I don't know. They start, oh, the track is short and all this kind of stuff. And Boston's had it certified. It's actually a tad bit over 200 meters and all this kind of stuff. But it's
Mm,
still like this myth. Stanford, I don't hear so much about Stanford anymore, but Stanford had the same thing. If you wanted to qualify for nationals in the 10K, you had to run the Stanford meet. So then it became, oh, the Stanford track is short and all, because we just don't want to believe like this place has something, right? Uh, have you had to deal with that? Because I mean, you now have a world record, by the way. It's
oh yeah,
Oceania record, very cool. Canadian record,
yeah,
that's very cool.
right.
The world record, that's a whole different ball game. Have you had, oh, what's going on out there? That guy
Well,
shooting the laser doesn't know what he's doing,
right. Well, setting the stage for 2024 was the success that we had in 2023, setting all those area records and country records.
Right.
And so Don and I came up with hosting a bronze level competition.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's putting up $30,000 prize money, um, and is coming up with the performance bonus structure, which will attract some of the professionals.
Hmm.
I was just trying to figure out a way that we can attract and keep the professionals here at Ramona. So the
Hmm.
performance bonus structures and the prize money for the bronze level, um, where they get a little bit more world athletic points for
Hmm.
coming.
Right. That's
So
right.
that attracted a whole slew of um, professional discus throwers within the top 30 in the world
Hmm.
last year. And so Mikolos hadn't registered until probably like 3 days out from the bronze level. I get a phone call, Mikolos is coming. And so that was kind of on the back burner for a long time. But we had a great field already assembled. And then, Coach Mo's like, yeah, I'm going to bring Mikolos. He's throwing really well, and I think he's ready for Ramona. So that kind of set the tone and the stage for what we had last year for the bronze level competition. Um, and the expectation of this could actually happen. We could actually see a world record set at Ramona. And so, just the buzz and the energy surrounding the situation and in the moment, was pretty unbelievable. So you make sure the facility is like spick and span. Everything is like, is that sector line as straight as I could get it? you know, everything was going through my mind, just getting everything ready and getting the right officials was the most important thing. Is
Sure.
getting a team of officials that meet World Athletic Standard. If something did occur, like setting a world record,
Right.
we have to have the right people in place,
Mm.
along with drug testing. We actually have to have a person at
Right.
the facility for drug testing, or
Man,
that world
that's
record would not have stood. So that was important. Just having the right people at the right place at the right time, and then getting the athletes to show up. It was just, you know, uh, getting all the dominoes in order to
hmm
make it happen. You know what I mean? So, Kara Winger, you know, as I talk about my officials, the gratitude that I have for my officials, um, to make Ramona successful, like in 2024, and like we're here we are fixing to go into another bronze level competition in 2025. Our officials are the most important people on the ground, um, that make this happen. And flight coordinating and the announcing, we appointed Kara Winger to do that, handle that task.
Hmm.
Dan McQuaid and his wife Alice were instrumental in helping transport these athletes from hotel to airport to facility, and you know helping with some food runs as well, um, and just you know the officials that we had to make this thing happen was,
Yeah.
and then just getting the athletes there is incredible. So
I love it. It's quite an amazing story. And again, a little blown away. 3 years. If this was 10 years into it, hearing these stories, I'm like, wow, that's pretty quick, actually. 3 years to
it's
make
just
this happen.
when one record falls, there's 5 records that fall, then there's
Right.
10 records that fall, and now I think um, we've had 4 world leading marks set there, um, by different individuals: Alex Rose, Ralford Mullings, Mikolos, obviously, and then um, remember the other one, but we've had 4 world leading marks. We've had 11 country records all over the world.
Yeah.
Um, And then we've got 4 area records set: European, the African area record, and Oceania, and uh, the world record finally fell last year. So
Man. So
it is mind blowing. It really
it
is.
is. I agree. I know you're literally staring into this season right now. You got the bronze medal meet, you got all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
But how do you, I know you well enough. It's 3 years in. Where does this go? How do you, I mean, first of all, it's a little bit like, how
It's
do you top the
well,
world record? But what do
no,
you, what's the future hold for Throw
this
Town?
year is trying to rewrite history on both men and women's side. So we still have the women. We've had great marks on the women's side. The top 10 records, top 10 list on women's discus is really deep. But it's my job is and focus is how do we set the dominoes once again to make them fall again.
Mhm.
Or- and so it's working your team of officials. It's completely different from last year. Um, it's working with agents to get the athletes to come again, and maybe it's bigger names this year.
Hmm.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have four guys that could break the world record. We could see the world record broken multiple times. We
Oh,
don't know,
man.
but we're gonna try to set that stage for that to happen again. So yeah, just a few names on the men's side. We're gonna have Matthew Denny from Australia who can set.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that he's coming. Christian Shea from Slovenia.
Mhm.
Mikolos is returning.
I bet.
So they can fight it out. They can fight it out. We might be able to mark a few world records on the men's side. I hope. We'll see. But on the women's side, we're gonna have Yame Perez. Yame Perez set the ninth
Yeah.
farthest throw in history. Um, it was the Pan American record last year at 73 meters 09, 7309, which is just just a centimeter short of 240 feet.
Mm.
But listen, this facility at Ramona is a 240-foot facility. Like discus throwers can come here and expect to see 240-foot throws.
Mm.
Um, like I said, we're trying to set the dominoes to fall again, and so getting the right people here, the drug testing agencies, um, making sure the facility is up to specs on a world athletic level,
Mhm.
and then getting the athletes here. We need the athletes here to be able to do the job, and so working with agents and we're going to see Valerie Allman have a shot at the women's world record.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's all weather driven as well, but
Right.
it's the probability here in Tulsa is pretty likely that we're going to have wind in April, just like we are in March. Like this coming weekend, it's going to be insane at Ramona, wind conditions wise.
Right.
So I just encourage a lot of the professionals that are looking for marks early to be here.
Yeah, I don't know how if you're a discus thrower, you're not Ramona's not on your schedule
Yeah,
somewhere. It's
yeah,
circled.
just hit your qualifying mark to go to the World Championships, and then just take
Yeah.
a break and go training.
Right.
That's kind of
Exactly.
my method. That's kind of my mindset is hit
Get
the
it
mark
done.
early and then
Yeah.
go training. So
Caleb, do you ever, I think about this 16-year-old Caleb in Childers, Texas, falling in love with the shot and the discus and, with Mr. Bragg there and thinking about what the future, like, oh, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to do really well. And you're still so young. That's the amazing part. You're still, I usually use like a one lap, a 400 meter kind of example.
yeah,
You're not at the 300 meter mark with 100 meters to go in your race. You're barely out the blocks in your journey here. Do you ever just pinch yourself and think, man, how did I get so lucky? Now that luck was preparation,
yeah,
but
I
do you
know.
ever just sit back and think, what in the world?
No, I kind of, yeah, I'm focused on making things happen, and you know, I like setting the stage and preparing and trying to make things happen, even with these young high school kids. And you know, how do you prep a kid to PR at the end of the month or end of the season? It's all about stacking the dominoes and
Mm,
watching them fall.
that's
And
amazing.
and on the facility side and setting the competitions up, you're setting them up for the professionals just like you do for the high school kids. And they're having just as much fun as the high school kids when they come here. So
Well,
Yeah, it's been fun.
I love that you're two.
Sometimes I don't feel young, Mike. I
Yeah,
don't
wait,
feel young.
I'm older than you, so I get that.
Um,
Well, I love that you're too busy setting up dominoes to even pinch yourself sometimes, but
yeah.
you've earned the right to kind of step back for a second and just look what you've built. And knowing that, you
Yeah.
built this with a lot of people, Amy and
No,
Don
you're right.
Devin
Been
and
re
things like that.
No, it's been very rewarding, but
Yeah,
it's also I've had a lot of people to help me make it to what it is,
right,
and
right.
just like this coming bronze level competition, it's um, appointing people to to do their expertise.
Right.
We're going to have live streaming on a
Oh,
professional level
good.
this year.
Cool.
We've
Very
partnered
cool.
with the Throws University crew.
Yeah.
We've partnered with to bring our live streaming free for
Cool.
the entire world.
Love
So
that. Love that. Yeah.
Jason and his crew were pretty instrumental last year.
Yeah.
With
That's cool. I love that. I'll make sure to amplify that so we can watch
Yep.
these as well together. And I got to get there. I got to get up there and
Hmm.
visit one day here soon. So, Caleb, man, thank you so much. Not only thank you for being here. I mean, that's I
Yeah.
don't want to say it's obvious, but I'm always very, very grateful for people that join us here in the podcast. But it takes some audacity to do things great, right? I mean, literally, when you think about the audacity, Caleb, that you're going to build this throws facility in the middle, I'm gonna call it middle of nowhere. I know you're close to Tulsa, and I do love Tulsa, but you're going to
Yeah.
build this thing in Ramona, and the world record's going to be set, and all these other records are going to be set. There's some audacity there. Of like, really, Caleb, who do you think you are? But you know what? Greatness starts, I think, sometimes with audacity. And I'm just grateful that you had it. And I'm grateful that there were probably plenty of times that there was like, this isn't going to work, or maybe I shouldn't be doing this and I should go over here and do this. I'm glad and proud of you for your stick to itiveness with all of it as well. And the many, many people in your network that have helped build this. I know it's not one man,
Absolutely.
but we need to have a leader to do those things. And so I'm just so happy and proud and just excited for you and what you're doing there at Throw Town. And just know that, when we look back in 10 years, it's going to be funny to talk about the first world record. How many beyond that now, 10 years from now, what else is going to happen?
Well,
You're
yeah.
a visionary. You're going to grow this thing continually. It's going to be, it's amazing now. I can't imagine what it's going to be here in the very near future.
We're trying to do a good job of capturing everything that happens and the data and uh, one one one
Right.
guy that we didn't mention is Dr. Christoph Kipp at University of Marquette,
Okay.
who's the chair of exercise science and the biomechanics there. But he brings the team out to Ramona
I
and
remember this.
it,
Yeah.
captures everything on video and then does all the data and analysis. And
Yeah.
he does a lot of the presentations on the world record last year in Europe.
Yeah. That's right.
So he's going to be back again. But it is the people that has made Ramona, the officials and the like Jason's crew with Rose University and
Hmm.
uh, Dr. Kip with his biomechanics biomechanics team. So we're looking forward to another big year this year. So
Well, I love that you're leading, and I love that people are supporting as well. Because you're right, it takes the whole
yeah,
village, so to speak. So,
the whole world. I mean, the whole world.
yeah,
We've already seen athletes from the Netherlands and
that's so cool.
Japan this year, and we're not even in the third weekend. So
I love it. I love it. Well, Caleb,
yeah,
man, thank you so much. I think this
yeah,
is super valuable. One, to be able to uplift and honor you and what you've done in our sport and what you're doing today in our sport and will continue to do, but also for other people that are listening to hear this and say, you know what? Okay, if Caleb can do this, maybe I can do this. I think that's going to be tremendously
sure.
important for our sport as we continue to grow it. So, man, I'm just, again, so proud of you, so grateful for you, and just excited, man. I just love what you're producing and allowing
Appreciate it.
others to produce, man. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. And thank you guys for being here again today, man. This is, I just love these kind of things. Our sport is filled with amazing, amazing people, and everybody has a role. A Don wasn't going to build this facility, right? But a Don was able to help a Caleb build this facility. And Amy wasn't going to design a facility like this, but she was able to help Caleb. That's the role. We all have our places, and they culminate when you add them together into really greatness, and that's what they're doing out in Ramona. Who would have known we'd have been talking about Ramona, Oklahoma, right? He's literally put them on the map here for the throwing world. And so if you don't know anything, this is your first time hearing about Throw Town Ramona, Google it, go find out, go look at, again, look at the series of meets, look at the pay scale. They have all this stuff for the bronze World Athletics meets, the people that are going out there, and pay attention to their social, because in this live stream, that's super exciting, because maybe you'll be able to actually see a world record as well, not just, read about it on a tweet or whatnot. So go check them out and make a pilgrimage. I'm going to. I got to get out there here soon. I'm going to go check it out. Maybe I'll throw. No, we don't want to. There's not a bottom of the world record, right? Like the lowest throw. So I'll stay away from that. So guys, thank you again for being here this week. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.